Hi, Rowan. Thanks so much for taking the time to join us today for this JumpCloud partner interview. How are you?
My pleasure, Chris. I'm doing fantastic, and thank you for having me.
No, it's an absolute pleasure and really looking forward to hearing more about Cobry. So that's a good place to start is maybe if you could tell us a little bit about the organization.
I'm the head of sales for our North American division, which is newly formed but quickly becoming a success. Our company, Cobry, actually was founded in Scotland in the UK, where I'm from originally. I'm now based in Toronto in Canada, and that's where I sort of lead up uh, running and building our North American operations. Originally, the founder, Colin Bryce, that's where the name Cobry comes from, his first and last name kind of smashed together. Uh, he actually created the company because he saw other organizations starting to adopt Google Workspace and saw the experience that they had and their employees had, the teams working in the company, compared to a lot of the old school, more traditional technology, where there was a lot of problems and issues that they would wrestle with. So, for example, the systems would go down or they would have security issues. And it ended up that the experience of IT for an end user in a company was more about something that was always broken and needed fixed, instead of it being a proactive, amazing thing that actually helped them get their job, help them do their job better. And that's the whole vision behind Cobry, is that we could see, or Colin could see, that Google Workspace actually enabled people to do their jobs better. And it wasn't just this kind of service in the background to provide communication and collaboration tools. It was a real way to drive impact to the business.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I've made a note, I've learned something already, Colin Bryce, which I'll
There
now
you go.
remember that every time I hear the word Cobry, which is super cool. And what's also cool is, as you mentioned there, that you're a British company. But I guess viewers can and listeners can hear that you've got a Scottish accent there, and now in Toronto. But it's a fantastic story of a British kind of company expanding into the US, whereas generally speaking, or significantly more often, I guess it happens the other way around.
Exactly, exactly. And well, my vision for kind of bringing Cobry to North America was, I think the work we've done in the UK and Europe over the last 12, 13 years that we've been in business, and that entire time focused completely on helping companies with Google Workspace. I wanted to take that amazing work and bring it into a much bigger, potentially more profitable market with so many more customers as well that are aligned with Google and willing to spend and invest in technology. I thought if we could bring the amazingness of what Cobry does as a business and the values we have into that market, it would only mean amazing things for everyone. And we're starting to see the signs of that success already, which is amazing.
It is, and it's certainly bigger. That's undeniable. It's a much bigger
Yes.
market to go for, and maybe we'll touch upon the Google adoption as we go along. But before we do that, what does a typical Cobry client look like, and does that differ on either sides of the Atlantic?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I would say it definitely differs in terms of size and scale, that's for sure. As you mentioned, and we discussed, the North American market is just massively bigger in terms of the number of companies and how large those companies are too. But I would say the style of the organization and what they're looking to achieve is actually very similar. The way that we add most value in our clients and the best customer relationships that we have is ones where that client allows us to deeply understand what they're trying to achieve as a business, not just through the lens of technology, but more broadly what they're actually looking to do. That often involves KPIs or some sort of vision of where the company's trying to grow, trying to go to. And then we can use our expertise and knowledge of Google Workspace and related technologies, like JumpCloud, for example, to help them on that vision and actually help them achieve the success they're looking for. So we don't want to be seen or have the relationship where we're really just some IT vendor that provides the occasional bit of support. We want to get deeply involved with the business and help drive them forward. And that's the most successful customer relationships that we have. That's our best clients.
Yeah, and that's a common thing, right? With the more successful, the most successful partners are the ones that are getting directly involved within clients' businesses to understand and to offer sort of real solutions to problems or problems they may or may not be even aware that they have. Your kind of solutions to technology that you kind of that they're not aware of. I mean, AI is a great example, right? Where you can start to help leverage that on behalf of your clients.
Yes, exactly. I was going to say more and more now I think we're having more discussions about AI than any other topic. related to Google Workspace and productivity. So yes, that's the latest area of value that customers want us to help them unlock, and we're having tons of exciting discussions about that. And I think also I would say what Google is doing product-wise at the moment is absolutely outstanding in terms of the pace of development, and the products that they're outputting are outstanding. So I'm very happy with the direction that that's heading, and I think there's a ton of great work for us to do there.
Yeah, and Google in the AI space, it seems to be going incredibly quickly. Sort of new updates all the time, which is really exciting. You mentioned Google Workspace, which is obviously a
Yes.
core component of the solution. Are you seeing sort of, again, with your kind of both sides at the Atlantic hat, are you seeing maybe a larger uptake of that within the North American market than within the UK market?
Yes, absolutely. I would say so. I think there's one main factor which I believe causes that, or maybe there's a couple, but I think the main one is that just culturally and alignment wise, obviously American companies are near where Google was founded, and I think the values of Google are, of course, they operate worldwide, but I think the core of the values of Google are very American. And so a lot of the companies based there naturally will just fit in and align with that vision. I would say another factor which I've noticed is there, and I mentioned it earlier, the North American companies' willingness to invest and take bets that will mean outsized returns for them in the future, rather than a more conservative approach, is something I've noticed as well. I think with UK and European companies, they're oftentimes wanting to take a more considered, maybe risk-averse approach, whereas the North Americans are more willing to kind of jump in there and see what can happen, so to speak.
Yeah, and do clients typically come to sort of make a call to Cobry and say we've got Google Workspace and we've got these challenges, or are they maybe thinking we're looking to migrate from Microsoft 365 onto Google Workspace or something different? How do those conversations happen initially?
Sure, sure. Well, both of those scenarios that you mentioned are the two main ones that happen. So either an organization will already have embraced Google Workspace, have adopted it, at least in some partial way, if not fully, completely, and they're looking for us to help optimize that, make it more secure, train their users on it, help them manage it, that sort of thing, which is fantastic. That's a relatively easy conversation because they've already been kind of indoctrinated in the Google world, they've already invested. The other one, which is a lot more challenging, but I would say, on the other hand, more rewarding as well, is when you can make the case successfully for an organization to actually move from another platform, which, as you said, most often or most commonly is Microsoft Office 365. There are some other email and productivity tools out there as well. But yes, in that case, and that's to be honest, that's our main expertise, is actually helping companies that are not on Google today move to and then make the most of it over time, helping them migrate their data and systems and the configuration they've got in their current solution, and then also training their people and helping move their systems and processes into Google Workspace. That, like I said, it can be an incredibly challenging conversation because there's a lot of complexity in changing the way that literally every single person works at a company. But in return, you can achieve amazing things. And so it's a very rewarding conversation to have as well.
Yeah, well, I was just about to ask, and then you kind of alluded to it at the end, is how do you have that conversation? I'm just thinking, and let's use Microsoft as an example. People have probably been using Microsoft Word and Excel probably since version 1 or 2 in the kind of 80s.
Sure.
And you're kind of going to them and say, and they're used to a world where you sort of file, save a document onto a server and file, save as, and network file shares and all the kind of stuff that they've been doing since the kind of Novell NetWare days, all the way through Windows to now. And then you're kind of going in and saying everything that you know, almost forget that. There's a different way of doing it, a better way of doing it, but it's a different way of doing it. So how do you have those conversations? And I guess, and more importantly, I suppose, is how do your, I guess, implementation teams and support teams sort of manage to get that across to the end users that are just used to every day of their working life they've been in Outlook, for example, for email, and then the next day you're saying you're using the kind of Google interface.
Sure, exactly. Well, I think human beings can often have a lot of anxiety around change and things being different, or imagining a world that's different to the one that they're currently in. I think that's maybe the way that we're wired. But also, what is true is that the human beings are able to evolve the fastest, adapt to different situations. They are the ones that are able to be the most successful. So we've got this kind of issue of having to see the possibilities, but also removing that fear or getting people to see beyond that. And I think that's one of the main things that we do, both in a kind of pre-sales way or before the decision is made, but also actually implementing and delivering, like you were saying, our project teams would be this idea of kind of change management. Or how do you take someone who is deeply ingrained in a system and platform and help them actually move? So, I mean, before the decision's even made and helping them evaluate if they would want to make the move to Google Workspace, we would help remove and kind of tackle a number of fears up front. Like, am I going to lose access to Excel? That's one of the most common, questions that we get asked. And we immediately can answer that by saying, no, not necessarily. There's a world of possibilities where you can still use Google Workspace and continue using Microsoft Excel. So there's maybe a dozen of those type of upfront questions that we get that we can immediately tackle. But what we really want to get into is instead of comparing product to product, it goes back to that thing about what's the organization trying to achieve. So the way that you actually convince the company to make the move and take on the difficult challenge of making the change happen is what is the benefit that they're going to receive. And oftentimes that can be cost savings. Maybe they're consolidating from Microsoft and a whole bunch of our platforms that they invested in over the COVID pandemic, right? This is a very, very common situation that we see with different customers. But there's also more aspirational benefits too that they may be trying to unlock. One of the most common ones is trying to make an organization more innovative, more collaborative. If there's some driving force that the leadership of an organization has around that, then technology can be a huge enabler of that, and Workspace specifically, because of the way it allows you to work in real time, the access to data that you have in anywhere, in any location, at any device, at any time. These sorts of things allow a different way of working. And so if there's sometimes if there's these really strong business drivers and an organization wants to achieve something, Google Workspace can be a big driving force in helping them do that. Like, for example, changing the way that they work and collaborate together, making the organization more innovative and collaborative.
Yeah, and a real life case study of that is me. I mean, before JumpCloud, as you could imagine, we use Google Workspace, but at a previous role, we used Google Workspace, and that's the first time I came across it from being in a Windows world. And I remember almost as part of my interview process, they were saying it's going to be Google and you're going to be on Macs, not on Windows. And I was there, okay, I can do this, but I need Outlook. I definitely need Outlook. So they went away, got me a license for Outlook so I could connect it to the Google Mail. And I'd literally never even installed Outlook. I think sort of within kind of half an hour of using the Gmail interface, I thought, why would I use Outlook to do this? And it was just like a light bulb going off. But it was sort of even I was kind of really kind of worried, thinking Outlook's the only way to do this. This is the way I've always done it. This is the way I'm going to keep doing it. And now I think if I had to use Outlook, I would probably find it quite difficult.
Yes, agreed. Well, then that's the thing. We provide very specialized training for a lot of these products to make the switch. For example, Excel to Google Sheets, Outlook to Gmail, those sort of transitions. And you're right, once people actually adopt and embrace the new way of working, they oftentimes find not only can they work the same, but often in better ways, which is fantastic. That's why we do this.
Yeah, and one thing that's often mentioned, and I'm sort of throwing this one at you actually, but one thing that's often mentioned, certainly in the UK around Google Workspace, and I think I suspect it's because of the consumer aspect of sort of Gmail as well, is that some people say that if you're a growing company, you probably need to get onto Microsoft because Google is probably aimed at consumers or small businesses. Now we know patently this
Right.
isn't the case. Some of the largest companies in the world are running on Google Workspace. But I mean, is that an objection that you've ever come across?
I think it's certainly something I've heard. I think I've heard it less in North America than I have in Europe and the UK. I think I would say this. I think Workspace probably has a higher immediate benefit and impact to smaller organizations just because of the way that it allows them to scale, the flexibility that it provides, the way that you can work together. It probably provides even more benefit to a smaller organization compared to a larger one. I think the other aspect is, like you pointed out, a lot of organizations, especially larger ones, have been around for a while, have been powered by Microsoft for years and decades. And so they have a lot of entrenched technology, layers and layers of infrastructure, and different things that they've configured together. And unpicking that and unsticking it can be quite challenging and painful. And in some instances, it might not make it worth as much to move. Whereas the smaller, younger companies have less of that, legacy infrastructure that we need to kind of migrate over or deal with.
Yeah, and I think anecdotally, it's may not be true, may be true, I'm not sure, but there's probably more of a startup culture in the US where people are coming out, starting these businesses and leveraging Google Workspace. Another area I suspect, and again, this is maybe anecdotal, but something I've seen is that in the US or North America, Google have done a much better job within education in terms of people are
Yes.
coming out of schools and universities only ever using Google Workspace, whereas in the UK, Microsoft have done a fantastic job within education. So again, people are coming out of work, and I guess this is why Microsoft and Google invest so much in these education programs. So when people are setting up their own businesses, they go to what they know and what they understand. So maybe Google's doing a better job over there than it is over here on that.
Completely agree. Yes. I think they have a majority actually, in terms of the usage of different schools and universities and colleges, in the US specifically. So yeah, agree. As all those people graduate and go into work, even if they don't start their own business, they're going to start asking, why can I not just work in the same way where we can all edit the document at the same time? I don't want to click save as and send you a, attachment in an email. I want to work together with you in real time. So I completely agree.
Yeah, and this is why when I'm speaking with other service providers that are in the Microsoft space, I keep saying, well, you probably need to start to look at Google Workspace because sooner or later someone's going to come up with an opportunity or a great prospect, and you can't be turning it away. And I think that as time goes on, the likelihood of that opportunity coming up is growing because the market's growing. Those people are leaving colleges, those businesses are being set up, and they're getting bigger and they need external support. So for me, it's a bit of a no-brainer to get to at least have, if you're not going all in on Google, have a foot in both camps so you can kind of do both.
Yes, completely agree. I also think that the AI strategy, I think the benefits of how Google set up Workspace, it being cloud first and not necessarily with a lot of legacy infrastructure and kind of disconnected bits of technology. I think having this one unified, clean platform with all the tools within it is providing a fantastic opportunity for companies to standardize their AI, and how they think about AI. Different business units using different tools. They can actually think about if they adopt Workspace properly the AI integration within Workspace, and then other platforms as well, and tools like Notebook LM, and Gemini Enterprise or Agent Space as well. I mean, these provide the core tools that any team, or department needs in order to do their work effectively using AI. So I think from that perspective, we're now starting to see a lot of the kind of vision of what Workspace was supposed to be become extremely beneficial by the way that they're integrating AI into the platform.
Yeah, and a quick shout out for Notebook LM, which I'm a huge fan of, and it's still a little bit certainly in the service provider space a little bit under the radar. People just don't seem to be aware of it, and it's such an amazingly powerful tool. So yeah, that's fantastic. And the um, Gemini again is something that we're encouraged at JumpCloud to use as much as possible. So we've got the sharing of the gems and things, which is possible now to allow it to work really, really well. So yeah, we're huge fans, and that does lead us on quite nicely to JumpCloud. I guess that's what we're here to talk about. So how
Yeah.
did you initially hear about JumpCloud?
Yeah, for sure. So I think I've probably made it clear throughout our discussion so far. I'm a big lover of Google Workspace, a big believer in it. Now, I'm also able to be honest on where there are gaps or areas where maybe Google hasn't gone down the path of developing out as much comprehensive functionality as some organizations need in some particular areas. Now, two of those areas that I noticed over time working with companies and helping them with Workspace is firstly identity and secondly device management. And what does JumpCloud do? Well, it's a platform that allows or provides amazing services for both of those. And I think one of the reasons I was drawn to the product, or the company and solution so much is firstly, I think the product's amazing and the pricing is very transparent. It's very easy to use and it's a very clean cloud-based solution, which works really well with our vision of how companies can use workspace and connected solutions. But also, I think the people and the team at JumpCloud are fantastic. All of the sellers and sales teams that I've worked with and collaborated with in terms of customer engagements has been fantastic. The partner support, shout out to Jason, has been incredible the entire time I've been working with him. he's been fantastic. So I was impressed not only with the solution, but also the fact that the team and the people to work with are amazing. And that in combination makes it one of our main offerings. In fact, I wanted to kind of put it out there that in terms of Cobry's position on how an organization can set up their technology stack, Google Workspace, Chrome, and JumpCloud is the kind of trifecta of what we recommend as a kind of base layer for any organization looking to set up their productivity and collaboration platform and have security involved in that too to allow them to scale. So, yeah, the experience from the start was amazing. And it's continued to be so amazing that we've actually now made it one of the three solutions that we suggest organizations in general that they should deploy as standard practice.
Well, that's good to hear. Very good to hear, actually. And I'll pass on the thoughts to Jason, who I know is a huge fan of you guys as well. So that's amazing. And I'm really happy that you kind of include this as part of the sort of recommended sort of three sort of pronged solution. When you're having conversations with the clients, and how do you position JumpCloud to them? How would you describe JumpCloud to someone that probably doesn't understand that you mentioned device management or identity?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for small organizations, they maybe don't think too much about what are my users doing on their devices? Where does the data live? Do I have any security control or parameters around that? But what I notice is as organizations start to scale beyond, say, 5 to 10 people, up to 50 users, hundreds of users, thousands, their needs and requirements in terms of understanding what data is being accessed on which device increases. Now, for some organizations, that's a lot more than others. Maybe they're in high compliance environments and they need really stringent controls. But essentially, pretty much every organization, as it scales, needs the capabilities to control what users are accessing on their devices. Now, Workspace for mobile device management, I think, does a pretty solid job in terms of Android management and iOS. I think there's some really solid options in there. There's a lot of control that you can provide. However, where there's some more challenges with the Workspace native capabilities is where it comes to laptop and desktop management. Now, for Chrome devices, Chromebooks, and Chromeboxes, obviously, as Google provides and creates that solution or that hardware, they provide fantastic management controls for that. But for things like Mac devices and Windows, that's really where a lot of organizations need a lot more capabilities that are not included in the Workspace native sort of controls that you have. And I think that's probably an intentional move from Google because they don't necessarily want to go into the area too much of device management. It's just not where they play well. They feel like the cloud is where they live, and that's where they've done extremely well. So I think it may be an intentional decision from Google, but at the same time, our customers need a solution and they need the functionality. And another case I'll explain where I see JumpCloud being very successful is in the case where a customer, going back to you asking me about what are the scenarios where you engage with customers, are they already on Workspace or not? If they're using Microsoft Office 365, for example, and they need to transition onto Workspace, a lot of the capabilities they're using today, because they've set their environment up in a more legacy way where they have more comprehensive device management, they need to translate some of that into Workspace. And because Workspace is architected a little differently, it's cloud first, and maybe there's different considerations in terms of device management, they don't actually have the capabilities needed. And so they can't see a path to making the move because they need the functionality. And that's where JumpCloud can come in as a fantastic solution.
Yeah, and that's what it was. I guess that's what it's designed to do to fill those gaps. So it's amazing to hear that's your feedback as well. And just quickly on devices, the clients that you work with, are they generally prescriptive in terms of the devices their clients use, or do they allow them to choose
Yeah.
Windows, Mac, Chromebooks, or are there some bring your own device aspects? So how does that generally break down?
Good question. There's a whole spectrum, to be honest, in my experience. Some organizations they see our the Cobry vision of kind of having Workspace plus Chrome and the management that that allows. And in that sense, they go all in on Chrome devices and provide that to their people. Especially when there's a lot of security required, we find that to be a very common route to go down because Chrome devices just inherently are very secure, can be attacked in a lot of ways that other hardware is. So I would say in that case mainly, yeah.
Okay, yeah, interesting. I was just curious around the sort of uptake of sort of Chrome books within sort of enterprise organizations.
Well, yeah, and I would say, aside from the organizations that go all in Chrome, there's companies using Macs, Windows, sometimes company provided, sometimes bring your own. I think to be honest, we're seeing a lot more bring your own device than ever, especially as people are now working from home, maybe remotely more often, less going into the office and sitting down at your machine, that sort of idea. So yeah, I think there's a lot more bring your own device strategy out there now than ever.
Yeah, that's definitely what I've been seeing as well, that there is more sort of bring your own device. And it's a case then of how to secure those, which is hopefully where JumpCloud can step in. Okay, on to the final question or section, which is usually the most interesting to me. So I'm curious to understand your answer to this. Um, Imagine you're at a hypothetical trade show and you're wandering around the booths, looking at all the vendors, checking out what the latest Google Workspace development is or endpoint protection, and you come across another IT provider that works with Google Workspace and or Microsoft, and they say, "Yeah, we've heard of Cobry. You seem to be doing really well, and we see you working with JumpCloud. Is that something that maybe we should consider?" What would you say to them?
Yeah, what a fantastic question. Well, I think the first thing I would focus on is going back to what you asked me a moment ago, which is what is the value and how do you pitch the value and benefits of Jump Cloud? And for us, it's mainly workspace customers that have a particular need that doesn't get fulfilled by the native capabilities. So I think one of the first things I would say to this person is, do your customers say X, Y, Z? Do they say that they need to control Mac and Windows devices and they don't have enough control and policies within Google Workspace? Do they have more complex identity requirements than what's included within Google Workspace? Questions relating to that. And then I would say, if that's the case, Jump Cloud can be a fantastic solution. We have tons of our customers using it, can be great in scenario A, B, C, and can take them through it. One scenario that we haven't even talked about, which is a really fantastic one for Jump Cloud, is when a customer has a split environment, or when a customer has maybe purchased in our company and they now are managing two different environments. And what I mean is Google Workspace and maybe Microsoft Office 365 in combination. Jump Cloud can actually be the bridge in terms of an identity between those two solutions and platforms. Otherwise, it can be hard for those users to actually interact with each other and see the directory and have full control and management over both environments, whereas Jump Cloud would allow that. So I would probably talk to them about different scenarios like that. The other piece of advice I would give is in terms of exposure or marketing, co-marketing, I think we've had some fantastic success there. We ran one event earlier in the year in New York, and again that was Jason. Shout out to him who collaborated and presented with me, and that actually produced a fantastic. We engaged with a customer there who turned out to actually adopt the solution and have deployed it to all of their users at this point. So that was an amazing way to get started to actually educate potential customers on the value. And then we also ran a series of roadshow events more recently, which again, the Jump Cloud team joined. And I think, again, it was fantastic to educate and show people the value, show them a bit of the product, and for them to meet the Jump Cloud team as well and see how fantastic you guys are to work with. That's some of the advice that I'd maybe give to that person that was asking me how to get started. What do you think, Chris?
Well, that was a very long-winded way of me asking you if you're free to come and work with us on the booth at the next event, because
Yeah, of
yeah,
course.
that's amazing, and I think that, as you know, you can't get better feedback than, I mean, we as JumpCloud as vendors, we can speak all day long about how great JumpCloud is, but to hear it from someone that's living, breathing it, and working it, and having success with clients is amazing. And you mentioned your roadshows there. I mean, they seem to be a huge success from what we gather in terms of getting out on the road and getting across the country and just presenting to people in their own territories is sort of super powerful. So yeah, I know that JumpCloud do our own road shows, but I heard that the ones that you did were super successful as well.
Exactly. We're already planning round two for next year, so look forward to it.
Yeah, cool. Okay, well, hopefully we can tag along with those as well because I know that the team really enjoyed it.
Fantastic.
Great. Well, thanks for that, Rowan. That's been a really interesting chat. Thanks for the continued expansion of Cobry or Colin Bryce, as I will now call it, across the rest of the globe and your sort of global domination quest. I wish you all the best.
Thank you very much. My pleasure. Appreciate the partnership.